As the 2025 season is set to begin for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the trenches, that's right, the trenches on both sides of the ball must be dominant if the Jaguars are going to be successful.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That is, in fact, a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars daily podcast, where it is your team every day. We have our finger on the pulse of the team, and we like to believe here that we can give you all of the things that you need as a build-up towards the 2025 season for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we're glad to have you, the everydayers, with us. And if you're not an everydayer, we appreciate you coming by, and we'll give you a reason to come back. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. All right, I'm going to let you know where we're going and what we're doing. I'm a credentialed member of the media here for about 2 decades here in Jacksonville, and I've been doing this podcast now for over 6 years, giving the fans something that they can relate to. And that's our goal here, to make sure you get smarter as you make informed decisions about how you feel about this team. We're going to start talking about the trenches today. We're going to end up talking about how the O-line needs the 4 C's. That is continuity, chemistry, cohesion, and consistency. Sounded like a coach. Right in the middle, the effort and talent must match on both sides of the ball. But we're going to start talking about the trenches and how dominant they have to be, specifically on the defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of talk about the Jaguars D-line. A lot of talk about the duo of Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen being one of the top duos in the league in terms of pressure. There's also a lot of talk about last year and the hockey substitution pattern that defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen decided to use for I don't know what reason, but he did it, and it was not successful. Much talk about Devon Hamilton, a dude that started his career out here very, very well, and then had an off-the-field injury, or more an illness that he had to combat, and he hasn't really quite gotten back to being himself yet. But there's hope and optimism that the way he played in the preseason and the way he practiced and prepared, that he will get back to that. And then, of course, Eric Armstead being outside, coming back inside. Colin Saunders being the new addition because the team did not feel confident in Jordan Jefferson, who is no longer here. Some rookies and some veterans that were brought in to shore up that defensive line. So what does it all mean for the Jacksonville Jaguars? The unknown is, how will they be used? What is Anthony Campanile going to do to make this unit stand out? One of the things that they did in the offseason is the defensive ends and the edge rushers, they got their weight off. The weight that they probably should never have had on. I'm hearing rumors that dudes were upward of 290 pounds. Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen were big, according to reports. I have a very, very good report that they got very, very big, and it showed. They look sluggish. I thought at one point last year that they were dead-legged. That's a term that I've heard used in the National Football League for a long time to describe guys being overworked and not peaking when it's time for the regular season. I think Jimmy Johnson started that. He had a camp that was so hard after their 1-15 year. He said that he thought the guy started the season off dead-legged because he didn't give them time to recover and recoup. And people don't understand that, man. You have to give these dudes, it's almost like a boxer where you shred weight and you do it all just for the weigh-in, just so you can weigh in a certain weight, and then you hydrate, and then you're in the best shape of your life on fight night. And I think that's what this comes down to. I just don't think that's what it was in hindsight. In hindsight, they weren't dead-legged. They were full. They had too much protein and too much bread in their system, and that's why they probably needed to come out of the game over and over again. I told somebody in a press conference last year, they're rotating so much. You know, those dudes keep sprinting on and off the field. they probably waste as much energy running on and off the field than they do on the damn play. Because sometimes they have to run a long ways, especially when it's like it's a goal line situation on each end. Them dudes got to run 40, 50 yards, man, just to get to the sideline. Hell, you could have just left him in there. You wearing him out, making him do all that running, going back and forth to the sideline. So they have to dominate, man. And they have to get off the field on third down. They have to stop the run in certain situations. And there have been times when they have done that. The frustrating part for a lot of Jaguar fans is they don't do it consistently on defense. They get pressure. They'll get 2 and 3 sacks in one game, and then the next game they can't get any pressure manufactured at all. So all of these things, in the past have been troubling. You wonder, and there are a lot of people that tell me, man, I got to wait and see it. You wonder just how they're going to be used. Well, I hate to break this to you, but use Florida State as an example. Shout out to my Seminoles. But a perfect example is a lot of those dudes that won the game the other night were the same dudes. They beat Alabama, but last year they couldn't beat anybody. You named the team. They were SMU. They were getting smoked. It's all about the attitude. It's all about the physicality. It's all about the expectation. It's all about accountability. And it's all about knowing your personnel. And we are going to see whether Anthony Campanile can get that done. He's known as a really, really good coach from a lot of people who have played for him around the league. When he got the job, they were former players, people that we thought were going to be attached to the Jaguars, but they didn't do it. They went in a different way. They were like, hey, man, they got a real one. That's a good coach. Guys that he coached not only in Green Bay, but guys he coached in Miami before that when he was with Vic Fangio. The irony is a lot of those dudes didn't care for Vic Fangio. How did that work out? Vic Fangio went and won a Super Bowl with the Eagles with a defensive performance for the ages. So sometimes you got to watch out for that too. Yeah, but these guys on the defensive line, they have invested 2 top 10 picks. DeJuan Smoot was the 3rd round pick, who was a backup. Emmanuel Ogba, I believe, was a 2nd round pick. Devon Hamilton was a 3rd round pick. Eric Armstead was a big time free agent. At some point, you got to produce. They've used the capital up. They've used everything up. Trayvon Walker has his 5th-year option picked up. Josh Allen at one point was the top 6, top 7 edge rusher until all of these other dudes have signed, but he's got his $100 million contract. Trayvon is going to get his. At some point, we need to see the results. We need to see this thing come into fruition where all of this stuff ties together and they're able to dominate games consistently. It doesn't mean that plays won't be made, but the thing is what's your grade? It's like, are you a B plus? Do you win? Do you lose some? But do you win more than you lose? And I think that that's what we're looking for with this defensive line. With both of these lines, before we get to the O-line, with both of these lines, effort and talent must match. How good you are and how much effort you put in has to match up, or how good they think you are and how much effort you put in has to match up. We'll talk about that from the standpoint of those guys going against themselves in training camp and what did that do, in my opinion. Did it show if one side was more physical than the other? We'll get to all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is presented to you by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here, and everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now's the time. And it's all happening at Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether it's your first time or if you're a veteran creating your millionth league. With the season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which means others have so much fun doing it, and there's a lot of ways that you can compete. Now, if you want to make more ways to play, try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? The new Draft with Friends mode is available, and if you prefer the classics, go get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew, no problem. Join a public league. It's easier to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft at Yahoo yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. All right, we sliding into another segment here, moving and grooving on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. If you're in the airport, if you're sitting at lunch, check out the Locked On Podcast newsletter. It's at lockedonpodcasts.com/newsletter. Great newsletter for a lot of information that's going on, from local experts to some of the station managers. You get a perspective you don't get anywhere else. They work really, really hard on that. We'd love you to check that out. Go ahead and subscribe to the Locked On Podcast newsletter. Effort and talent. I think when you think about effort and talent, you don't question guys like Trayvon, Josh Allen, and that's probably where I'm going to stop on defense. The interior players from center and right guard are new. There will be 3 incumbents, 9 times out of 10, more than likely 3 incumbents, even if there's some sort of battle between Pat McCary and Chuma Edoga. You're looking at a new starter at right guard, a new starter at center, but mainly you're going to get 2 tackles and a left guard that are guys that were here last year. So a lot of people say, well, if the offensive line was that chaotic and that bad, how come, even though they drafted 2 people and they signed 4 free agents, which one of them is now gone, how come there isn't more turnover? Well, it doesn't mean that everything was wrong with the entire group. And we're going to discuss them and their consistency and their cohesion a little bit later, because remember, a lot of the talk was, well, they just all have to play together. And then they all played together last year, and they all played together terribly. So we'll make sure we get to that. But the investment, whether you look on the offensive line or the defensive line, the investment has been there. So we're not going to kill people for trying. Cam Robinson was moved last year, but I'll include him in this. That was a 2nd-round pick. Walker Little was a 2nd-round pick. Anton Harrison was a 1st-round pick. Luke Fortner was a 3rd-round pick. Oh, my. Yeah, I feel you. Brandon Sheriff was a big-time free agency signing. Ezra Cleveland was somebody that they traded for, ironically, from the Vikings, and he knows Grant Udinski, and he knows Sean Starrett very well. So, and he's still there. So it turned out that was a pretty good move, because they haven't been able to unseat him at left guard. On the defensive side, we mentioned 2 1st-round picks, 2 top 10 1st-round picks, number 1 overall and number 7 in Trayvon and Josh. 3rd-round pick in Devon Hamilton, big-time free agent, as we mentioned, with Eric Armstead. So the commitment has been there. I don't know if there's one guy you could really look at amongst that group and say, okay, they weren't worth what was paid for them. Ken Robinson started a lot of games, and he's gone off to Houston now. I think he's a backup, too. I think he's listed at number 2 on the depth chart at left tackle. But everyone else seems like Walker Little, it took him a while, but in his 4th year, halfway through his 4th year, he was finally named a full-time starter and got an extension. If he's as good as we feel like the coaching staff believes he can be good, he's going to be a bargain, because he makes about $15 million a year, maybe a little bit less. And if he plays at a level that puts him in, maybe I'm not going to say top 10, but somewhere between 11 and 15, he'll be worth that money easily. And he has a chance to even play better than that. Anton Harrison, after a bit of a slow start in camp, got to it, but it wasn't his physical ability. It was more or less his effort. And I'm not saying he didn't try hard, but effort goes beyond what you do when you're actually, I'm going to use this term, on the grass. Effort actually is about being on time, what you do when you're away. I'm not saying that he's a bad guy, but sometimes people can tell what you've been doing away from the facility when you get to the facility. The buy-in. And I heard Liam Cohen say something a few weeks back when it appeared that Anton was turning the corner. Cohen said, he said, okay, it was a good day. Is that what can I have that all the time? Are we basically, I'm going to paraphrase this. He said, is that what we're going to get all the time? I like what I've been seeing lately, but this is what we're going to get, because that lets you know that this is what they're expecting. They're expecting that from him. Robert Hainsey, from what I understand, has been fabulous. And there were so many people that talked about Robert Hainsey losing his job in Tampa to a first-round pick as if that was like this total demerit, and it wasn't. Tampa just probably knew that he was going to be a free agent and they needed other young guys and maybe they could play him side by side. But after a while, they said, you know what? Let's just go ahead and put him at center now because he's going to play there next year when Haynes is gone because we ain't going to be able to pay him and keep him. And that's what happens when you have to pay other guys like Tristan Wirfs a whole bunch of money. So there was a little bit of misunderstanding as to how the Jaguars were able to get him. And when Liam Cohen had just seen him lose his job. Offensive coordinators don't bench people. GMs do that and head coaches. So mainly the head coach. But going and getting him was still, two things can be right. Yeah, he wasn't better than Graham Barton, but he damn sure better than Mitch Morse or Luke Fortner or anybody else that you can find reasonably on this roster until you draft and develop someone else. And then there's a versatility to the offensive line that I'll mainly get into in segment 3, but what they need, because that is the one position where if you screw it up, it's screwed up until you unscrew it. You are not going to find people on the street that can elevate your team on the offensive line unless you draft them or develop them. That is a very, very hard job to just wake up and go, oh, we need a left tackle or a right tackle and snap your finger and go find one. It's also very, very difficult unless you give up really, really large capital to go out and say, we need an edge rusher that could get us 10 sacks a game. And sometimes you go and get a guy like that and he sucks against the run. Or we need a big nose guard. And you could probably get away with that one at times because you can get someone like you could probably find a dude right now that's 34 years old that's been sitting out for 6 months, and he can come in and give you 15 to 20 snaps at nose tackle. But that 3 technique, somebody that consistently can give you the pressure that you need up front. No, and I know some people get bored when they're talking about trench talk, when we're talking about trench talk, but too bad, because guess what? That boring thing, and I've said this for a long time, that boring thing can make your team look awful. You could have a really, really good team, but if your defensive line can't stop the run, you're in trouble. And if your offensive line stinks, you are in even more trouble. So let's just hope that the coaches that they have, the system that they have, is conducive to the talent that they have, and it allows the players to reflect the commitment or the draft status or the money that they've been receiving or the accolades, that they put it all together and they can play really, really well. I'm going to go through the offensive line and the 4 C's here in segment 3. And the real reason I want to do this is because there's a versatility aspect that I think needs to be acknowledged, because it sounds very similar to something that Doug Peterson used to talk about that used to drive me crazy. Like, we need to be able to switch people around and move. And I always used to wonder, they used to always talk about moving guys around and having guys that could do multiple things. But it always seemed like the main thing that they were supposed to be doing, they couldn't do it. So we'll talk about that and how there's a bit of different language and there's a bit of a different feeling that when Liam Cohen and his crew talks about that doesn't quite sound the same. James Gladstone even mentioned that the other day too. We'll get to that in just a second here in the 3rd segment on Locked On Jaguars. All right, got a little listener survey for you. We have an important request. Locked On wants you to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcast even better. It's your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Man, it is NFL season. It's almost here. We got a game in 2 days, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because how it fits how you like it to fit and how you like to bet. Player props, building a same game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. So here's what you do. All right, if you're ready to play, and you better be, man, download the FanDuel app now by visiting fanduel.com to get started. Download the app. That's fanduel.com to place your first $5 bet, and you could win $300 in bonus bets. Also, today's show is brought to you by Upside. Are you still paying full price for gas? Let me know if you're paying full price for gas, because if you are, oh, I got something for you, man. Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code touchdown and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already need. At first, I thought it was too good to be true. I'm like, man, y'all get out of here with all of that. But it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes. And you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app and use my limited promo code, which is touchdown, for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code touchdown. Others vary. There's a little bit of a disclaimer for you. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. 2 days to a game in the National Football League on Thursday. You get to see the Eagles pop the Dallas Cowboys upside their head, because I think that's exactly what's going to happen. You got to wait till Sunday to see the Jaguars play against the Carolina Panthers. That's going to be a fun one. 2 expansion teams that came into the league at the same time. I think the Jaguars are going to have a pretty good day, but a lot of that depends on the trenches, and that's what we've been talking about here today. All right, let's get to the 4 C's. I saved the dessert for last because the offensive line is much sometimes as we talk about all the other parts of the team. The offensive line here in Jacksonville has been the biggest source of trepidation by thinking whether or not this team is ever going to get over the hump. It has been the hardest thing to find for this franchise to get a good, consistent offensive line. So I always call it the 4 C's. Continuity, which means playing together. Chemistry. You've heard me refer to the Temptations and the 4 Tops, how they all have to move in cohesion at the same time. There you go, the word cohesion. Cohesion and chemistry are very, very similar. One is probably what you're doing, but the other one is probably the mindset that it takes to do it. Like if you got chemistry, you ain't got to think about it. Cohesion, you might have to put some effort into it and humble yourself a little bit. Trust that your guy's going to do his job, and then you need to do your job. The other one is consistency. Consistency comes when you do those 2 things together all the time, combined with the continuity of everyone being there together. Therefore, you get the 4 C's that I love to place on the offensive line position. And I don't know anybody who would disagree with me that those are the things that you need in order to be good. Oh, and by the way, you need talent too. And that's why we discuss talent in the second segment, because I think it's important that it's about Jimmys and Joes and you need the bodies, right? So what the Jaguars did this offseason, they drafted 2 and they brought in 4. One of them they traded back. They traded Fred Johnson back to Philly for a 7th-round pick. Took a little look. It's almost like a poker game where you go ahead and call a bet just to see the last card, and then if you don't want it, you just fold it. So they folded and sent Fred Johnson packing back to the Eagles for a 7th-round pick instead of just cutting him for free. So now you get you have what you have. Now, what do they have? Well, they have a whole bunch of versatile people. And as I mentioned before we went to that break, sometimes that could be a little bit of a catchword that can gaslight you, especially if your team has heard that we need a whole bunch of guys that are interchangeable before, but then they've just been awful as an offensive group. It's like, you're almost thinking like, okay, forget having a Swiss Army knife or a jack of all trade. I just want a jack of one trade. I want you to do one thing well and just do it well. I'll settle for that. You settle for that, and that's good, but it doesn't help you in terms of having roster flexibility, and that's a part of being a good team too. So what the Jaguars have done is every single one on that team, with the exception of Robert Hainsey, I don't think he in the NFL has played anything but center. Everyone else has played guard and tackle. Like Anton Harrison, he's played tackle everywhere. He played more left tackle in college than he did right tackle. Walker Little, since he's been here, has probably played more left tackle than right tackle, but there was a thought at one time that he was going to be the heir apparent to succeed Juwan Taylor when he left here a couple of years ago. So he kind of bounced around. They even used him at guard a little bit. And they used to talk about how he could play either guard spot or either tackle spot. And for the life of me, we couldn't understand why he wasn't on the field, since he was good enough to play all of those positions, but he was never good enough to start at any of them. And then all of a sudden last year, halfway through the season, the light came on, I guess, and people realized he's ready. He needs to be able to go. Pat McCary has probably taken snaps at every other position other than right guard last year, but I think he's even played there. He's played every position along the offensive line and center. Jonah Monheim has done the same thing. He's played tackle, he's played guard, he's played center at USC. They're using him. Wyatt Milan was a tackle, a left tackle, but now he's a left guard, and they say he can play right guard too, and maybe even right tackle. So what you have is, and Chuma Edoga, he's been a left guard, a right guard, and a right tackle. You got people that have actually done well at a lot of positions. Not great, but good enough that they were always a part of a rotation. What does that mean for the Jaguars? We don't know until we see it, but we do know that it might mean that they can keep only 8 offensive linemen as opposed to 9. Okay, that could be something that you might see happen on game day, which will allow them the flexibility to have another player who could impact the game. Or it could just mean, they could always be in a situation where, regardless, if your left guard gets hurt, you might not plug in the next left guard. You might just move McCary over there and plug in Edoga over on the right side. So it gives them a chance to always have their best 5 that's available at that time on the field without worrying about whether or not the people will have a hard time making those switches or not. So I just think it's a great thing, and we're going to have to watch and see, and I think it's going to be evident the first game of the year, because Liam Cohen has said they need to see us when we come out of the huddle. And Carolina doesn't have the greatest defensive line. All they got Derek Brown's a great defensive tackle. So we're going to see if the Jaguars can use their advantage on the offensive line to get their point across and be really, really physical up front. And then on the defensive line, of course, if the offensive line does its job and they're able to score points, then the defensive line can be dictated by the score and the clock, and they can get after it on that side of the ball and not let people try to nickel and dime them to death and limit possession. So we'll see how it goes. We got 3 more shows the rest of this week, and then a postcast on Sunday, because that means the game will be over. We thank you for making Locked On Jaguars your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL season previews on Locked On NFL. Every division winner, breakout stars, and Super Bowl contenders, an 8-episode series with everything you need to know about the NFL season. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on this day, you guys spent about 29 minutes with me, and it's 29 minutes that you can't get back. Therefore, I don't take them for granted, and I hope you enjoyed the show and gives you a reason to come back and know that we won't waste your time here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We ain't got long to go, y'all. 2 days before Toe Meets Leather, and about 4 days or 5 days before Toe Meets Leather here in Jacksonville. I'm Tony Wiggins with Locked On Jaguars. We'll see you next time.